Hello and welcome to lesson 85 of the Learning Guitar series. In this lesson, we're going to continue discussing the harmonic minor modes, and then we're going to also look at some interesting compositional techniques that we can use when we are writing music or if we're writing backing tracks that help us studying the material that we're tackling. Let's look at the PDF straight away for this lesson. And as you can see, what you're presented with, it's harmonic minor studies, and in particular, is interval studies. The exercises are written in G harmonic minor, but make sure you chromatically practice them in all other keys. We're looking at 3 shapes out of 5. So the shape of E, followed by the shape of D, followed by the shape of C. And as you can see, the reason is kind of obvious. They were breaking this down in 2 parts, first the first 3 shapes and then the following 2. And this is due to the fact that, it's a lot of material. And in a way, given the interval of 3 weeks in between lessons, gives you a chance to focus each week on one particular shape. If you look at the PDF, basically what's happening here, you have the usual intervals of seconds, third reversed, so basically that's, an inversion of this. Third alternated A and alternated B. And then, fourths, interval of fourths, interval of fifths, interval of sixths, interval of sevenths, and then octaves. Now, the reason we want to practice these things is because it gives us an opportunity to look at the same scale that we looked so far, so harmonic minor in 5 shapes, but instead of performing it, say, like this is E harmonic minor, in the shape of D minor, for example, this one. And it gives us the chance of looking at it from a different perspective, for example, seconds. And of course, backwards. Because inevitably, like these kind of studies, combined with the study of triads that we did in the previous lesson, will become fragments from which you can derive your own improvisation over these scales. Aside from these studies, in this particular lesson, I wanted to discuss with you a few ideas that you can use both compositionally or for practicing, just creating your own backing track if you want. The idea stems from the fact that we can create some very harmonically complex chord progression, even starting from the idea of using just, one scale or 2 scale. Basically, we're trying, in this case, the idea actually stems from the fact that having to think of a backing track for this lesson, I thought I wanted to combine maybe 2 tonalities. In this case, are going to be E harmonic minor and G harmonic minor, so 2 scales, basically. And I just didn't want the backing track to be 5 minutes of just E minor major 7, 4 bars, and then G minor major 7, and then E minor major 7, and then G minor major 7, and just soloing on top of it. Felt a bit boring, so I thought of introduce you maybe like to some other pieces of information where harmony and theory can give us some very practical answers in terms of creativity. I'll explain you in steps basically what I did and the final result. If you think in terms of PDF, there is a PDF that comes also with a backing track. And what we're practicing ultimately is going from E harmonic minor. For example, this is like a D minor shape, D minor major 7 shapes, going to G harmonic minor. And in this case, this would be your G harmonic minor in the shape of E. And then again, E harmonic minor, in this case, is the shape of C minor, to G harmonic minor in the shape of D minor. And as you can see, the idea is moving to one scale to another, but kind of in the same area of the neck, so you can see what's in common, what's not in common. And you have it for, across the entire neck. So that you're still practicing the 5 shapes of the scale. But what I'm going to explain to you is how we end up with a chart. So where the chord progression, while you're practicing those 2 scales, so E harmonic minor into G harmonic minor, E harmonic minor, G harmonic minor, As you can see, harmonically speaking, this progression moves quite a lot, which makes it interesting in terms of harmony in theory and how we derive this. And of course, this is a bit of an extreme. As you can see, there is a lot of chord changing. You know, if somebody put you a chart like this in front of you without telling you, look, these are the scales that we're using, you would, think that this is incredibly complex harmonically. As a matter of fact, it is not. That's the interesting part about this. It's actually not. It's the harmony is constructed from the scale that I wanted to practice, and I wanted you to practice, in this case, harmonic minor. Let's have a look at how we got to this chart. Here I have the two scales that I want to practice. I have E harmonic minor, I have G harmonic minor. Now let's have a vertical structure. So let's look at the arpeggio, the modal arpeggio, as opposed to the horizontal structure, just the scale. By the way, you might notice here that I use E flat instead of D sharp, for example, but the simple reason is that I want you to see that there is an E flat here, but there is also an E flat here, and you will see soon why that can be very relevant to these studies. So let's look at the vertical structure, and we know that it's constructed as E, G, B, which is the fifth, E flat is the major 7, F sharp is the 9, A is the 11, and C is the flat 13. Let's look at some triads here. So we have EGB, and we know that EGB is E minor. I'm going to write it here. If we look at G, B, E flat, now G, B, E flat is a G augmented, is an augmented triad. B, E flat, and F sharp is basically B major, major triad. E flat, F sharp, A is an E flat diminished. Because this is, if you think of E flat as 1, F sharp becomes the flat 3, and A becomes the flat 5. And that's why it's a diminished. If we look at F sharp, A, and C, now if F sharp is 1, A is a flat 3, right? And C is a flat 5. So this is also F sharp diminished. If we look at A, C, and E, if A is 1, C is a flat 3, and E is a 5. So this is basically A minor. Last but not least, C, E, and G. If C is 1, C is 3, G is 5, so this is a C major triad. And from the Stadio slash chords, basically we derived that we could play E minor or G augmented over E, and we would get this kind of sound, or we could play B over E. But for the moment, let's keep them this way. Now let's look at the harmonic minor. And again, if the vertical structure would be G, where is the root note, B flat is the flat 3, D is a 5, then we have F sharp as in the major 7, A is the 9, C is the 11, and E flat is the flat 13. Again, same notes, just vertical structure. Of course, we know that these three notes are basically G minor. Now, B flat, D, and F sharp, if this is the root note, now this is a 3, and F sharp is a sharp 5, so basically an augmented. Hence, we have B flat augmented. Anyway, because these two scales are basically the same type of scale, they're both harmonic minor, in a way, in terms of triads, you can literally look, okay, the third chord is augmented, the second chord, sorry, is augmented. The third chord is going to be major, so D, F sharp, A is going to just be D major. And the fourth chord is diminished, so F sharp in this case is going to be diminished. And you should already notice something interesting where we have this triad F sharp diminished, but you know it's also present in both chords. The only thing that would change would be the root note. We know that also the fifth chord is going to be diminished, so we have A diminished. And again, you can see similarities between like A minor into A diminished. It's basically one note difference. We know that then we have a C minor. And last but not least, we have E flat major as triads. Now, let me delete this for 1 second, because I want you to see basically these connections here, this area. Okay, let's give it a color so you see what's going on. So far we've basically done what somehow we did when we started slash chords. So we have a series of triads, which, you know, if we were practicing just E harmonic minor, we could easily like have a say a bass loop with just an E. I'll just loop it. And I know that, you know, from this piece of harmony in theory, I know I can play a E minor triad. I can play a G augmented triad. I can play a B major triad. And so forth and so on. I can play, I don't know, A minor triad. C. F sharp diminished. E flat diminished. And of course, this is the idea behind, you know, slash chords. At the same time, it's also true that I can take those triads, and now instead of using them as slash chords, if the triad is a triad of C, put C in the bass. You know, just not with this time literally thinking, okay, the triad is C, I'm going to put C. Or the triad is A minor, and the bass is going to play A. So I'm literally using those triads as chords, as a series of chords. And the beauty of it is, independently on how I have basically 7 chords that come out from this piece of harmonization. So I could play E minor, G augmented with the G in the bass, B major, E flat diminished, A minor. So in this case, I'm not using them as slash chords. I'm literally using them as chords. And by doing so, I'm creating a rather complex harmonic progression, because I can permutate these 7 chords in as many ways as I want. But still, from a melodic point of view, the melody is still E harmonic minor. I'll give you a demonstration. Let's take, I don't know, so, let's start from E minor, just for the sake of it. That's a C, B, A minor. And we say that in this case, this chord progression stems from the scale. So it stems from E harmonic minor. So what I did, I literally took 4 of the chords, in this case the easy ones, literally E minor is contained, I'll show you. I used E minor, then I used C, B, and A minor. Let's make it, maybe a little bit more sophisticated. Let's use E minor, G augmented, maybe B. Just literally the first 3 chords. Let's loop those ones. Again, different chord progression. And yeah, scale is still the same. See, that's interval, for example, interval studies. It's an example of an application of why we want to study intervals. Now, if, you could just stop there and be like, okay, do I want to play? That's a chord progression. And then I can just play my harmonic minor and practice all the studies that I'm doing. So that in a musical way, rather than just do the scale up and down. I'm trying to make music here. In this case, I went a little bit farther and I thought, okay, I want to practice 2 scales, as you've seen from the PDF, and eventually the same of the neck and all that part. So let me create a progression, which is maybe like 4 bars of each, so that gives you enough time to think ahead while you're playing an E minor, harmonic minor. You can think, okay, this is where I'm going. You can visualize the G harmonic minor. You have enough time to do that. I mean, at first it might not be easy, but eventually you will. And create a chord progression which kind of contains both scales, in intervals of 4 bars, but because we're using triads, also have some degree of voice leading. What I mean is, if I confront these chords and these chords, at least in my case, it comes natural to think, okay, look, I'm going to put 4 bars of E minor and maybe 4 bars of E flat, because that's literally like as a chord, it's literally just a semitone apart. The same thing can be said, okay, I'm going to have maybe 4 bars of, let's use this color, G augmented, and then going to 4 bars of G minor. The same can be said in between, B. Let's have this, I don't know, this color here, B and B flat, etc., etc. So you can see the, A minor can go into A diminished, the C major, C minor. That's kind of like an interesting one. Actually, I'm gonna play it straight away now, and so you can hear what it sounds like. And of course, because you have 4 bars. I mean, in this case, the backing track, I thought, okay, let's have 4 bars. Of course, if I have 4 bars when I'm trying to play E harmonic minor, this could be 4 different chords from the E harmonic minor scale, and then once it moves to G harmonic minor, I have another 4 chords. And maybe it will make the harmony of the song rather complex to listen to. But in terms of lead playing, no, fairly, you're just using 1 scale, and that's pretty much it. So, for example, let's have a look at this C major, C minor that we find out exists in there. So, literally, my chord progression could be just, and so this is E harmonic minor, and this would be G harmonic minor. So I play something like this. That's G harmonic minor. G harmonic minor. E harmonic minor. So as you can see, you can create interesting harmonies, and that's why at the beginning of the lesson I say that this can be interesting from a compositional point of view, because you are starting basically from a melody. The scales in this case are basically the melody, and this could have been just one scale, and we can apply this to a major mode. I want to write a tune based around the Lydian scale. Same process. Here are the chords that would allow you to use the Lydian scale. You know, although the harmony seems to be moving in many different directions from a lead point of view, you're basically developing your melody over the Lydian scale. In this case, I made it a little bit more challenging because instead of using simply one scale, one tonality, we're using two. You know, that's pretty much it. We could have used more. So the bottom line is we're starting from a melody. We are deriving an harmony from it. And of course, once you add the rhythm, and this, you know, the rhythm is pretty much what kind of genre of music you're in. We could do this, you know, this could be a metal tune, or this could be a bossa nova, you know, that the rhythm somehow kind of establishing which box you want to be. But you have this compositional side, and of course, this is also like, you know, an invitation at times. If you have a loop pedal, or you know how to work with the DAW, in terms of creating your own backing track, some sort of do some sort of self-learning. But while at the same time, you see, like this backing track is designed to practice a specific thing, in this case harmonic minor. So you can always create a backing track just because you want to practice something. But instead of just practicing it as an exercise, instead of just doing this up and down in 5 shapes, etc., which hopefully you would have done in terms of developing the photographic memory, the muscle memory of the scale. And now you can practice, you know, the musicality of it. That's what these backing tracks are for, just to play, to use the material instead of just doing up and down. Because if you do just up and down, that's what you're learning, really. You're not playing music. In a second, I'm going to load the backing track and play along. But now if I show you again the PDF of the chart for the backing track, now you understand why it might look so complex, but actually it's just, you know, me moving from chords that derived from our harmonization of the E harmonic minor scale, and then going to the G minor scale, and trying to do some degree of voice leading. So you see like C major, C minor, C to D, C to D, E minor into E flat. And here I used maybe 2 chords, but again, you have B and C, but it's still E harmonic minor scale, and then you have C minor, D, but it's still G harmonic minor scale. That's how we got from just starting from an idea. I have 2 scales, and I want to create some music with it, and to a fully fledged kind of tune. In this case, I probably exaggerated in terms of how many chords I used, but nevertheless, I think you see the point. I'm going to load the backing track so you can hear it a little bit, and in the meanwhile, thank you for following this lesson. I hope everything is clear. So enjoy playing and enjoy practicing, and until next time.